So is everybody in the room?
We've got Dr. Haas here. Oh, and Abby Willard.
So is everybody in, Linda? Well, anyways, we'll call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday morning, April 27th. We're a little bit late in starting, but I'm sure we'll catch up. And for the committee, Chris Bray would like to have the services of Michael O'Grady in the worst way later this morning. So Michael, I don't know if Chris has been in contact with you or not, but we'll try to get done our work so then you can go talk with natural resources.
Okay.
So the bill that we're going to be talking about this morning is H 420. It's a miscellaneous ag bill that came over from the House, and we made a few changes to the bill, and I don't know, Michael, if you want to run through those changes so our guests that are with us can understand where we are in regards to the changes.
So the major revision that you requested was to actually add sections to the bill regarding on-farm slaughter, and a new proposal based on herd share or animal share authority for an exception to slaughter inspection and licensing. So
Yep.
I just sent you that language. And so to just provide context, the Federal Meat Inspection Act and its rules require meat that's going to be sold in commerce to be inspected and by a USDA inspector or a similar state inspector if the state is so approved. And the state law requires the slaughter to be conducted by a licensed slaughter in facilities that meet minimum criteria. There is an exception to that inspection and licensing requirement, and that is when a person is slaughtering their own animals they own for their own use or enjoyment or for the use and enjoyment of non-paying guests. Currently, the Vermont statutes include a provision which is referred to as on-farm slaughter or personal slaughter, where a person can go to a farm, purchase an animal, and then under the personal use exception, slaughter the animal at the farm, and then take it away in halves or quarters. What you discussed was increasing the minimum number of animals that can be subject to on-farm slaughter underneath the state statute. And so current law limits the number of livestock per year that may be slaughtered by a registered farm conducting on-farm slaughter. You would increase the number for swine from 15 to 30 per year, for cattle from 5 to 10 cattle per year, for sheep or goats from 40 to 80, and then for that combination of swine, cattle, sheep, or goats from a total of 6,000 pounds of the live weight of the livestock to a new threshold of 12,000 pounds per year. And so that would be the change to the current on-farm slaughter law. No other change besides the numbers, and you discussed how you wanted to go forward with 50% increase to all of them. And then
Yep.
you discussed, prior to the discussion last week, the chair had asked me to look around at some other ways that states do personal or on-farm slaughter and how they set limits. I talked to you about a couple of models, but you seemed focused on the Wyoming model, where the law allows a person to buy an animal share in an animal or in a herd of animals. And an animal share means an ownership interest in an animal or herd of livestock created by a written contract between a consumer and a farmer that includes a bill of sale to the consumer for an ownership interest in the animal or herd, and a boarding provision under which the consumer boards the animal or herd with a farmer for care and processing, and the consumer is entitled to receive a share of meat from the animal or herd. So going back to the personal use exception to the Federal Meat Inspection Act, this would give any person the ability to buy an ownership interest and then qualify for the personal use exception for from a slaughter inspection.
Yep.
So the law, the language that I provided would provide that the requirement for a license and inspection would not apply to the slaughter of livestock and provision of meat when the livestock is slaughtered and the meat provided pursuant to an animal share. Because if you have an animal share, you are an owner. And so you can receive meat underneath the personal use exception. And then the provision of meat pursuant to an animal share shall comply with all of the following. The animal shares entered into and ownership of the animal is established prior to slaughter. The meat is provided by a farmer who owns or controls the farm where an animal or herd subject to the animal share is located. The meat is received by the owner of the animal share. The meat provided is obtained from the particular animal or herd subject to the animal share. A prominent warning statement that the meat has not been inspected is delivered to the consumer with the meat or is displayed on a label affixed to the meat packaging, and information describing the standards used by the farm with respect to herd health and in the processing of meat from the herd is provided to the consumer by the farm. I don't like that term consumer. I think I would recommend that you change consumer to the owner of the animal share.
Yeah.
And then a person who obtains meat under the section shall not sell, donate, or commercially redistribute the meat. So that's the Wyoming model. What it does is it allows that kind of prospective ownership of the animal, and it allows the farmer to slaughter and then provide the meat to his or her co-owner in the animal or the herd.
Yep. Any questions from the committee? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not a question. I just want to make sure Michael saw that typo on line 7 on page 4.
Yep, I already fixed that. Thank you.
Sure.
Yep. Anything else? If not,
I just have a quick question. Michael, you had told us that Wyoming had made this shift, but then you alluded to other states. Are there different models? You know, I think this is an exciting direction, but I guess if someone were to ask me what the options were, I would have thought there weren't too many other ones. So any snapshot we should know about?
So you're right. There aren't that many others. Yeah, there are some states that allow the ritual slaughter under the Federal Meat Inspection Act, ritual slaughter exceptions, which is also hand in hand with personal slaughter. But they're fairly quiet about it. They don't publicize that much. Then there are states such as Maryland where they allow on-farm sale, but basically the slaughter has to be conducted under what some states call the abattoir. It's basically it's a facility that meets custom slaughter requirements, USDA requirement. That's your next kind of example. And Maryland puts a cap on it. Like you can only sell, it's like $40,000 to $60,000 of product per year underneath their abattoir exception. But that basically is kind of an inspection requirement anyway. So it just allows the on-farm sale of meat that's been slaughtered and subject to inspection on your farm, which theoretically is already authorized in Vermont.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I would think with the bottleneck that we had this past year, where people couldn't get meat and there was a shortage of meat, this would certainly help people that want to, do their own thing, sort of, per se, could go and buy a share of a cow or beefer or pork or whatever. And so anyways, we'll see what Dr. Haas or any of those folks at the agency has to say in regards to that. So we have a list of 4 from the Ag Agency, and I don't know, maybe we could start right in with Dr. Haas. Are you with us?
Yes, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. I don't know if it's your end or my end, but it was kind of breaking up a little bit, the voice. So anyways, welcome. It's good to see you. You heard, did you listen, Michael, explain our changes to the on-farm slaughter bill? And I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. It's kind of cold turkey maybe, but maybe you could comment in regards to what we're attempting to do.
Sure, yes, be happy to. My name is Kristen Haas, the State Vet and Director for Food Safety with the Agency of Agriculture. Thanks for the opportunity to provide some feedback or weigh in on other parts of the bill as your committee sees fit or is interested in. Senator Starr, you're correct. It's a bit cold. I did listen to Michael's overview, and thank you, Mike, for summarizing that. I had not seen that before or heard that before. So with the committee's permission, I would love the opportunity to take that back to our meat inspection team and have further conversation and get back to you with some more comprehensive feedback on that proposed language. The things that came to mind for me, though, immediately that I jotted down as you were going through that have to do mostly with the logistics of how that language would be implemented and the importance for having provisions in place that require good record keeping on the part of the parties involved, so that our inspectors, if there is engagement that the agency has with those activities, that we have a clear ability to discern who's responsible for what piece of the process at any given time. So I think that record keeping and that information, maintaining clear information, can be super, super important. And then the other piece, and I'd have to actually look at the language and have further conversation, but I was envisioning what the sort of, for lack of a better term, chain of custody would be of that product, and whether it's the committee's intention that everything be in transfer of product be in real time, or whether you are looking at or contemplating a situation where like at a CSA, product could be picked up, or at a farmer's market, product could be picked up or transferred, sort of similar to what exists with the raw milk statutes currently. And if that is the case, then again, just clarifying who can receive this product under this provision would be important to keep everybody on track. Those were the two things that came to mind as I was listening to the run through by Mike. And I don't know if I'm off base there, or if those have been considered, or if I'm not worrying, but just bringing up things that you've already worked through. But that's what came to mind for me.
Well, we haven't talked, or I don't think we had any intentions of changing the law like we did with raw milk. We haven't talked, but we also heard somewheres through some of our conversation that some farms were selling beef and meat products at their farm stands, but we didn't really talk too much in regards to how that was being done or any of that. I don't believe. Does the committee recall anything in regards to selling meat at those farm stands, or where TSAs pick up or not pick up? I don't think we have intended to change any of those rules or the rules in regards to the present rules on keeping the paperwork, who's buying the beef and all that. We didn't talk about changing any of that, but we can certainly have that conversation, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of the language so that you can further review that. But anyways, I don't know if you have any information on the on-farm slaughter business from the past, because that's been in place for maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, I think. Have you noticed any increase in problems with on-farm slaughter in the past, Kristen?
I would say that we have the issues that we have noticed over the years have not necessarily increased in frequency or incidence, but they've just been sort of persistent throughout, and which is fine. That's inherent with any set of requirements. We do have farmers, individuals each year who do not register as required and or do not report their totals as required. Again, I can go back and look at the statistics from year to year and see if we've seen an increase in that incidence. I'm not aware that we've seen an increase. It's just an issue that comes up on a perennial basis, as would be the case again with any requirement that's in place. Some adhere and a few on occasion do not. So we try to work with people through that and remedy those issues as they come up. Yeah, so I think that would be my answer to that.
Yeah. Any questions? Could you look that up and let us know when you come back to report on the bill in general, on that particular part? Let us know those issues.
Indeed.
Chris?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that there's a compliance challenge. When you're coming back to us, though, I hope you can help us understand if there's anything, a scale around any safety any illness, anything like that. I think from where I am, and as I think about talking to colleagues about this on the floor, that's going to be where people are, concerned, and we have to know that this is backed by the good habits of Vermonters, which I suspect it is. But if that's not the case, it would help me a lot if you could help us understand that.
Yes, absolutely. I think what will be important in that discussion is, in addition to what you mentioned, Senator Pearson, any documentation of illness or other issues, would also be some feedback on the slaughter and processing practices, just to maybe give you a feel of what many people are doing or what some people are doing, how they're managing those processes on their farms, so that you can more adequately provide that feedback to your legislative colleagues. So yes, we will get you some feedback on that.
Yep. Any other questions for Kristen? No. Well, thank you, Kristen. How did you notice any this last year with the pandemic? You must have got in on some discussions in regards to meat shortages throughout, I guess, the whole country, or at least in New England here. So did you get any uptick in like people from southern New England or south of us that wanted to buy or purchase meat?
I would say yes, we did. There were lots of conversations going on at different levels, regionally and nationally, that I participated in. So some really informative context provided through those conversations. The thing that we saw here in Vermont is an uptick in the number of people who were becoming first-time homesteader, operations and assuming ownership and management of livestock, whereas they had not in the past, for purposes of trying to maintain food security for their families or perhaps their communities and friends and neighbors. So, pigs were at the center of that. We've had a huge uptick in the importation of pigs into Vermont, and some of that has persisted into new permanent or at least semi-permanent markets. As an example, Guy's Farm and Yard, the business here in Vermont, for the first time, you all are probably familiar with some of the retail outlets that have chick days and that sort of thing in the springtime. So they started last year for the first time, I believe, having pig days and brought pigs into Vermont in the same manner that they sold and distributed chicks. So they are now licensed as a livestock dealer with the agency, with the state. And I saw just a couple weeks ago, perhaps, the Guy's Farm and Yard in Williston had their marquee up saying, put your order in for your pigs now. So a lot of swine movement, which is great because we were able to provide an outlet for some of those Midwest states that experienced those continuity of business disruptions. There is a great opportunity for us to provide a lot of education and technical assistance to those who were importing and owning swine for the first time. Swine in the Midwest move in a different way than how they move here. And so the ID requirements and the traceability requirements are a little bit different. So we spent a lot of time educating folks on those. And again, some of those markets have persisted. So that, I would say, anecdotally, is the thing that I noticed the most. And New England was an outlet for some of those animal populations to avoid having to depopulate herds of animals because they couldn't make it to slaughter in time. So we saw a lot of that.
Yeah. Chris?
I love the image of a husband coming home. Honey,
guess what?
You'll never guess what I bought. You did what? Michael, I'd be curious, or Dr. Haas, if you have any sense. I think this is all generally very positive, and you know, it's a move to diversify as more and more land shifts out of dairy is very promising, and generally in the climate sustainability kind of metric of more local food, is enormously positive. But as we consider this sort of CSA model, Michael, anything that gets in the way? I hadn't considered this because I'm thinking very locally, but you know, if you're getting a meat share, that is not like a weekly purchase necessarily. So is there anything that would prevent a Vermont farmer from marketing a meat share to Boston, let's say, and having Massachusetts folks travel up for a weekend once or twice a year to pick up? Is there any interstate travel, any issues that we should watch out for, or could we anticipate that as a new era of some of the market?
I would be concerned if the sales were actually, the product was actually crossing state lines as part of the transaction. But if the product is sold on the farm, or provided really on the farm, it's provided, right? Because the people that are buying are the owners, or getting the meat are the owners. I think that you would not want to discriminate against persons from out of state. That would be facially discriminatory. You might have a legitimate state interest in saying, kind of the way that some of the cannabis laws around the country have come up, that they will only sell to a resident, because you have a legitimate state interest in regulating a confined industry for safety and health. But I don't see that necessarily here. You have multiple second homeowners in the state, multiple tourists that come to the state for prolonged stays. If they wanted to buy an animal share in their neighbor's herd, I would think that it would probably be difficult to prevent them from doing that.
It doesn't stretch the imagination to find somebody enjoying the ability to talk about how Robert's hog farm is raising their pig for them.
Right.
That's very interesting. All right, thank you.
Senator, the thing, I apologize.
No, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, I was just going to add, and I think this committee is aware of it, but this is an opportune time to bring it back up again for your continued awareness. The Cooperative Interstate Shipment program that our meat inspection team has and the agency has been approved to participate in is another opportunity that allows then state inspected. So I realize we're shifting gear, or I'm shifting gears here a tiny bit and talking about now inspected product. But the great thing is that for facilities that participate in this program, even when product is inspected under state inspection, which historically would have limited that product's sale and distribution to within Vermont, now that product has the potential to ship out of state. So that's been another, since the COVID pandemic and during the pandemic, has been another sort of expansion and assistance that we've been fortunate to provide by allowing that opportunity for participating facilities.
Well, I think to Kristen, I think Abby's on with us, I believe, and I believe that last spring or maybe last fall, Abby called a lot of the slaughter facilities to find out, what they needed to be able to produce more meat, getting back to the cooperative interstate shipments. And I believe we provided a couple of $1 million in the early approach bill 321 to the agency to help to do these updates and upfits to increase the output of meat that possibly could go across state line. Is that, Abby, are you on with us or? Yeah. And maybe it's probably too early to tell, but how that's going. You guys, have you done, has there been anything done, I guess, this early to help improve the slaughter facilities? Or do you have a list of things that you're working on or requests that you've received? Because we do have, there's 2 more million in the working lands bill or part, which would allow some more money coming in your direction. So, so how are we doing with our slaughter facilities?
Yeah, good morning. I'm happy to address that as best I can, Senator Starr. So I'm Abby Willard, Director of the Ag Development Division at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. A few pieces that I can share. We currently have a survey out to our state and federally inspected slaughter facilities, asking them a series of questions around what their current throughput is in their facility for different animal types, what their plan or vision and or need for expansion looks like. And if they do have a plan for expansion, do they have design? Do they just have a concept? Are they actively recruiting funding? And do they have a time frame for the completion of any expansion? And what does that afford them for increased throughput? And then the third question is around workforce. So getting a sense of how many positions on the floor, on the slaughter floor, on the meat cutting table do they have as vacancies, and what set of skills and kind of training might they need to be able to fit up their facility. So those survey results are due on May 7th. And I think last time I looked, a couple of days ago, there were responses from 13 of the facilities, which feels pretty good considering we're somewhere in the 25 to 30 range. So hopeful that over the next week, we'll be able to catch a few windows of available time for each of those facilities to respond. The hope is that that survey data will be valuable to assist the Working Lands Enterprise Board in their conversations of how any of the $3 million that was appropriated to them out of the COVID response bill, of which $500,000 needs to be per direction from this committee and the overarching legislative body on meat processing and slaughter capacity expansion. So that still kind of remains to be determined how the Working Lands Board is going to move those dollars through. There's been some conversation as to whether there would be an earlier request for proposals that might happen this summer before facilities hit their notorious fall rush and would be too busy likely to respond to an RFP and put forth a kind of an application for expansion, or how they might want to roll it into a larger set of infrastructure investments. And I think because there was some flexibility in the language and it's being administered through the Working Lands Enterprise Board, there's some process still to be determining how those dollars will be allocated. But hopefully we'll have some good data from at least this inspected facilities of what their growth plans are. There's still then the custom population that we could also reach out to see if any of those facilities are planning to come under inspection or if they have the desire to sort of shift their business model in any way. So I hope that gives a sense, Senator, of where they're at.
So you're getting geared up to move forward then. And did we seems like someone reported we've had a couple of new ones are coming on board, and are they in the process of building? How do you know how that's all going?
I don't have a very up-to-date assessment. I don't know if Dr. Haas can speak to what the meat inspection section is aware of, but I think last time we spoke, there were between 6 and 7 facilities that were planning to come online over, sometime between the summer and through the next 1 to 2 years. So some of these facilities will take some time to construct, get licensed, get HACCP plans and situated to be inspected. There were other facilities, one in southern Vermont that was coming online very, very quickly. So there's a variety of scale and intent for audience that these different kind of expansion and startup models have in place. So I don't know if Kristen has additional updates, but I have not heard that there's any shifts in what we had originally communicated, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Any update from your people, Kristen?
My update is that I just jotted down, added that to the list of detailed information to get back to you all. I know that our meat inspection managers and compliance officers are busy beyond busy, working with those entrepreneurs who have expressed interest in and/or are in process with getting up to speed and coming on board with this business model. So I can tell you that is absolutely happening. As far as what stage of the game each of those prospective businesses are in, that's where I need to get detail. But yes, I would agree with Abby. It's been a busy sector, and there's a lot going on.
Well, trains. I mean, we've lost quite a few dairy farms, and hopefully they'll get into the meat raising business and things to keep our open lands open. And what about working with VTC to set up their meat cutting and processing training program? Do you know if anyone's working on that end of it? Abby?
Yeah, I can speak to that, I think, a little bit on two specific pieces. So VTC, in partnership with NOFA Vermont, did a meat cutting program this last month, and they have, or at least launched it, and they have had documented an increased demand for that program over previous years. So I think everyone was feeling really positive about the interest and the support for that training course. So that's underway and continuing. One of the COVID response efforts that the agency is involved in is with FEMA. And so we're part of an agriculture solution-based team working with FEMA to explore federal funding opportunities for some of our priority initiatives, of which meat and slaughter processing capacity and workforce development and creation of a training center at Vermont Tech are 2 of those priorities. Yep. And as a result, there have been a variety of conversations between President Moulton and EDA and other potential funding sources to explore both resources as well as bringing in other models, like from Skill, for example, of how other states and other universities and college settings have stood up meat processing training centers on their campus. So I understand that this remains a priority for Vermont Tech. They have received a fair amount of technical assistance and are exploring a few financial assistance opportunities for them to stand up a training center. We're also hopeful that both the funding through Working Lands as well as the anticipated U.S. Department of Agriculture grant program that's targeting slaughter and processing facility expansion will be eligible sources of funding for Vermont Tech as well. So they may be able to put one application in for purchasing equipment for the training center, another to kind of retrofit a space on campus, and maybe a third in developing some sort of expanded training program. So They have lots of priorities and focus right now as they kind of look at what the future of state colleges and their role in it. But I'm assured that this is one of their priority topics.
Yeah, well, that's good news. I hope you stay right on top of it because they seem to get busy and lose their focus from time to time. You know, I don't know how many millions of dollars we've got to ship into the system. We're just darn lucky we got a lot of federal money to stabilize, get them back on their feet and help stabilize their facilities. You know, the children, our students need those facilities, especially Randolph dealing with ag open, and have that open and viable to our young people, as well as retraining people that have lost their jobs to go get retrained to do new work. Talking about that, Chris, I heard you lost 70 people employed at Coffee Cup. They just closed up. So those
Yeah,
folks
people got 8 hours
retrained.
notice or something.
Yeah, that was
Weird.
awful. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to understand. And I will just say personally, I live very close to them, and quite often the waft of delicious donuts comes up into the neighborhood, and that will be sadly missed by everybody around here. But it's serious. I mean, it's a lot of jobs for folks.
Yeah, and you know, when I go to the store, if I can't get Coffee Cup donuts, I don't get any at all. You know, I
mean,
really like their products.
It's hard to believe they're not profitable. But hard to believe they're not profitable. So I guess we'll get an answer at some point.
Yeah. Any other questions for Abby from any of the committee members? No. All good. Well, thank you, Abby, and good luck with all that. And any other questions for Abby or Kristen right now? And if not, we'll get Ryan on. I think Ryan's with us.
Yes, Senator. Turn on my video.
I didn't know. Maybe you'd run away or something, Ryan.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know, but maybe you'd run away, and with all that money we got you for your projects.
Well, yeah, Payment for Ecosystem Services Working Group is certainly going to be funded to implement some of its plan this year, but definitely here to implement it.
Yeah, and I think we did something to extend the duties of the board out. Maybe it's in this bill to extend the time for at least another year. That's what you requested, right? And
yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just was going to agree with what you just shared. That yes, in this bill, H420, in Section 6, there's a proposal to extend the ability for the Payment for Ecosystem Services Working Group to meet for an additional year, and extends a deadline for the final report by that same year, owing to the year that was lost due to COVID when the working group was not able to meet.
Yeah.
But the working group is meeting and working on developing and implementing a work plan. And the monies that you mentioned would absolutely help the working group get to a space where the RFPs and other research that needs to be conducted can be done so, and hopefully piloted in advance of that 2023 date that's extended and proposed in this bill.
Yeah. Well, as you probably assumed, we're very the committee's very interested in your work that you're doing, and certainly, want to give you the proper tools for you and the committee to move forward in or with. And I'm sure we've got in there that, something is all set up and rolling by the time we come back next year to get a little update from you on how things are proceeding and what you find and what we need to move further in regenerative ag and keeping stronger soils and healthier soils. So it's important to not only our committee, but a lot of Vermonters are into that. Any questions from the committee in regards for Ryan on how he's proceeding or what he's proceeding with? Or no, is there anything else you need from us, Ryan, to move forward in a positive direction?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think all the tools are there. Last session, the committee expanded not only membership, but also the endorsed specific questions that the working group needs to endeavor to answer in that final report, as far as specific ecosystem services to be valued, how to measure it, what to pay for it, and what the mechanism is for that program that would work for those members on the working group. And so I especially now with the funding that's been appropriated to this effort, I think the working group, we have a full membership. We've met twice. We're meeting again tomorrow, and are preparing to set the work plan for the summer so we can reconvene in the fall with some new information to chew on. And definitely would look forward to sharing an update next winter when the legislature reconvenes on where we are and what we hope to find out over the next 2022, where we're really hoping a number of partner projects that are ongoing can really help begin to bring in some of the informations and perhaps pilots to really test some of these concepts on the ground. And so this the long way of saying, I think we're in very good shape to be able to report back to you progress next session.
Yeah, well, that sounds good, Ryan. Chris, you have a question?
Ryan, as you know, I support this work, and I've been among the voices happy to advocate to get you the funding you need and to pull this together. But it's somewhat frustrating that the agency, we have to scramble to put that money together. It's not part of the agency's budget. Do you see that shifting where there is buy-in from the top that suggests, particularly if we go to pilots, that's going to be a bigger outlay of money, I would suspect. Do you see that shifting so that the agency as a whole, and not just you, I applaud your good work. I know you're dedicated to this. I know you believe in the prospects. And I'm delighted that it's farmer driven. And I really applaud your work, but I'm hoping that next time we get together and hear the update, there will be sort of more of a concerted buy-in. And do you think, is that at all realistic for me to hope for?
From my vantage point, there is significant support from the top for this work. I think that's evidenced in part by the agency, funding the facilitation work for the meetings that happened in 2019, and again to bring on the facilitator in advance of the $250,000 appropriation, which is absolutely going to help us deliver that facilitation and per diem support or what have you, the farmers, as well as expanding the RFP. But I think through a number of our different programs, not just the environmental stewardship program or pay for phosphorus, there is that support for this. And I think similarly, the work that's happening in the Climate Council and the Ag and Ecosystem Subcommittee, that there's a real acknowledgement that a lot of these pieces are coming together, and investing and recognizing farmers and farm cropland can be a real tool mechanism to not just get at the broader ecosystem services beyond food and fiber, but getting to the water quality, which of course the division I work for is focused on, but the climate mitigation and adaptation and resilience pieces are really going to come together. And my hope is we will, yes, see and even we'll see, continued and perhaps as you're saying, a more explicit indication of that through budget line items. But I can't speak to what will happen there, but I think all of the, as we knew in the water quality conversation, agriculture was estimated to be the most cost-effective place to make investments and beget water quality improvements. And, I can't speak to where this climate process will end up, but I think there's other good arguments for investment in the ag sector. And I'm hopeful that will be made legible soon through that work.
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
you, so you work for the Water Quality Division, Ryan? And
Yes,
so are you asked, like when it gets near budget time, are you asked to put requests in for funding or changing funding?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
As a,
because I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but most agencies asked for level funding for 22, and I don't know where you were in that, but I know we were concerned, and that's why we went after the extra money to get for you or your division, because we certainly understand the importance of the work you're doing and want to see it move forward for many reasons. But anyways, hopefully next year when the budget time comes around, they'll listen a little more, because what we always could do, is change the water quality or the water quality division's money right in the budget and move some of their money to you if they haven't got, if they won't go and ask for enough to fund what projects you've got going. We're very capable of moving money around. So anyways, I'm glad that they haven't told you not to see us and ask for money, because it's, it wasn't a hard task to get that money once we explained the projects that you're working on. And so the entire legislature feels very strongly in the procedures and what you're working on to get us to a better place environmentally, and a better soils to grow better crops on, in the whole 9 yards. So hang in there and don't be afraid to ask for what money you think you need to move forward. Any other questions for Ryan from any of the committee? If not, thanks a lot, Ryan. I don't think we have any other questions for you. Or do you have any for us, or concerns that we should know about, or you're all good? If you're all good to go, we'll let you get going.
Yeah, I'm good to go. I'll just share, definitely significant support and a lot of work from everyone in the agency, or many divisions in the agency on this topic. And I think we may have had some, the COVID pandemic really disrupted some of the work of this group. And I'm really hopeful we'll have some, a concrete recommendation that could have a line item attached to it. I think it was a bit, immature and just other competing priorities in that space, which, brought us to the situation, but I appreciate your support for this work. We're definitely very committed to it. So thank you.
Yeah, and of course, none of us knew we were going to get not just little truckloads of money, but tractor trailer loads of money coming our way. I'm just glad that we were able to get a little to head murders. And so thank you, Ryan, and keep up the good work. And we'll see you next, hopefully next winter.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So we have Carrie Jaguar with us. Are you on, Carrie?
Yes, good morning, Senators.
Morning. How's the world treating you?
Well, I just got my second COVID shot in town. So if tomorrow fares well, we're on our way. We're on our way.
Well, it sounds to me like you're doing a lot better than Corey Parent, our committee member.
I got one last week, so I get another one May 11th.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. What did we get in the, we got a question in the chicken. Did we have a question in the chicken, what we call chicken, but when to get clarified, guys?
Yeah,
Did
it was, it had to,
did Margaret think?
yeah, you're cutting in and out, Mr. Chair. Do you want me to try to summarize the question?
Yeah, go ahead. If I'd rather cut in, but if I'm cutting out, it's not very helpful.
Well, you probably followed it and you can tell us, Carrie, but as we understand it, this is for the pet food nutrient supplements, I think, or nutritional supplements rather, and that there's a bazillion of them. And so basically the House committee, and I don't know where they are in their process, is reduce the fee for them because that will, there's way more than perhaps we'd understood. And so it'll cover your expenses. So have the fee, or roughly, I know that's the question, or that's the assertion. I don't know whether that's happened in the House, and I'd be very curious what you think, if that's reasonable.
I do think it's reasonable, and have heard from some Vermont companies. This is the animal nutritional supplement products that are your glucosamine joint supplement type products for pets. And originally we just had proposed one straight fee straight across the top at $105 to register everything. And the argument was that it wasn't necessarily equitable for folks selling tons of corn and soy to dairy farmers to pay the same registration fee as somebody selling the small bottles of joint supplements or whatever nutritional supplements for pets. Our original math was that there were about 1,200 of these products, and with half the $105 fee at a $50 fee, it would have brought the agency $70,000. After conversations with the NASC folks, they have about 7,000 products in their database, and they say about 4,000 of those products are sold in Vermont, so our estimate was off. And they've guaranteed us that they'll support an increase in fee if we don't hit the target of $70,000, but they think the NASC has agreed to help us with outreach to their constituency. And they believe that easily we can register 2,000 products at $35 a product and hit that $70,000 target. I'm willing to see if that happens.
So, so the fee went from what to $35, Carrie?
It came out of the house at $50 a product and ended up at $35 a product based on our estimate of 1,200 products and their guarantee of 2,000.
So it went down by $15.
Yes, it did. It
Yeah.
did.
And then, Brian, did you have a question on the appropriation in 334, was it?
It was actually 434, Mr. Chair.
Or, I mean, 434.
Yeah. And Michael O'Grady and I are scheduled to go into Senate Appropriations this afternoon at 3. I assume, although I wasn't really told, but I assume that the reason is they're concerned with the per diems for the 13 members of the Innovation Board. And I understand those are coming out of the Pesticide Monitoring Revolving Fund. So if I could just get your view of how much is in the fund and how much each of the manufacturers pay in.
The manufacturers pay, I think what are we up to, 225 a product? We just did that in the pollinator protection bill, and we register approximately 12 to 13,000 products annually. And I believe Senator Starr knows exactly what's in that fund, and it will very easily cover the $4,000 or $5,000 of per diem.
I think it would be good if you took the total number of products and multiplied it, by, is that the $35, Carrie?
No, this is the pesticide products, and we're either at 195 or 225. I don't remember.
Well, I just took 225 and multiplied it times 12,000, and it's
3 million.
2.8 million. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the money that, rather than getting into how much he's got in his account, I would tell him that the fees raise 2 point whatever it is, Brian. And we've got 13 board members and at least 4 meetings a year. And so you got 52 meetings, 52 individual meetings, right? If you've got 13 that come to the meeting and they're meeting 4 times, you take the 52 and multiply that by their, what do they get for attending a meeting, Carrie?
50, I think.
They get 50 in expenses, and I think it comes out to like 100. It's 50, and the expenses are generally estimated at around 80. So you basically get like 100 to 120, 130 as the estimate. And there's only 8 people that will get the per diem and compensation, because it's only for those who are not ex officio. So it's 8 times 4 times, 30, I would say 100 to 100 to 120. So you're in the $4,000 to $5,000 range from a fund that has a couple $1 million in it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe Brian, you could see if you could get a folks to amend that to raise our pay a little bit for, just for the kicks and giggles.
I think I might stick to just business at hand, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Gary.
Did we have other questions in any of in 420 or 434 for Gary? No. Did you
You may
did you
have.
have any, did you have anything in the miscellaneous bill, Gary?
I try not and use that as a vehicle.
Well, it runs on 3 wheels a lot of times.
Yeah. I just have the fertilizer language where you're taking nutrients out of the commercial manure applicators definition. Let me know if you wanted me to answer questions about PFOA and PFOS testing in milk. I believe that came up last week, and folks at DEC reached out and thought you had a question.
Well, we sort of had one in regards to allowing municipalities to contract with farmers to spread their sludge on their fields. And we certainly want to make sure that stuff is clean and not going to harm our soils and end up like some farms, or at least one farm I know of over in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
And so do you and or EPA, do you guys test for those contaminants in municipal waste?
Not yet, Senator, but we will be. Your other bill, S-102, does create a residuals management program, and we will be partnering with DEC to address some of those contaminant issues.
Yeah, so that's already in action, Michael?
So the Agency of Agriculture doesn't require testing, but ANR requires testing under the solid waste management rules that were just amended this past summer. They will now require testing, they basically of a default amount of chemicals prior to land application. That is in the new rules. Now, a farmer wouldn't have to test their manure, but it's for those people that are regulated as solid waste applicators.
So do you know if are the farmers that accept this, are they the applicators, or is it the person who picks it up at the municipal location? Is that person the applicator? Who's the applicator?
It's the person that has the permit to do it. It's the person that ANR issues the permit to. It most likely is going to be the owner of the land where it's going to be applied, and then they could probably hire their own employee to do the land application.
So that would be the farmer then, or the landowner, right?
Landowner, yeah. Yep.
So the farmer would, but the municipality should be paying for that through fees that they pay the farmer, right? For accepting this stuff?
Yeah, they get paid. They get paid.
So there's every sort of iteration of who's getting paid and who's getting the permit that you can imagine. There is an instance where the municipality owns the field. They spread their town sludge on that field and then rent that field out to a farmer. So the farmer's paying the town to rent the field that's getting the applications of sludge or biosolids. There's other instances where the farmer has the permit because he owns the land in the municipality and no money changes hands. There's just about every iteration you can think of, and there's a number of these permits throughout the state, less than 100, but.
So Michael, why aren't we putting the burden onto the municipality to do the testing prior to the product leaving their facility, so that we don't really care where the product goes as long as it tests safe and clean of heavy metals? Because if we've got all these different processes that are going on, hell, half of it must be slipping through the cracks. If we got 100 and how many, Carrie?
There's less than 100. Last time I looked, there were 68 places that were receiving land application. But this is a DEC program, and they will require the permittee to test under the new solid waste rule to whoever the permittee is. And sometimes it's joint permit, the landowner and the person generating the biosolids.
Well, why wouldn't we put the burden onto the municipality that's getting rid of the stuff? And then there isn't even any question whether they own the land, rent the land, sell the product to a farmer, give it to the farmer. And we would also know what's going into the landfill. If every municipality had to do a test before they took this stuff out of their treatment facility.
So you, the General Assembly passed a PFAS bill a couple of years ago. One of the things that is supposed to happen is that there's supposed to be standards for municipal wastewater treatment, and that is coming in 2024, I believe. There's already efforts underway to regulate PFAS substances at the water treatment level.
At the facility where it's generated, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. So we're okay then.
But remember that what is land applied isn't necessarily from the water treatment facility. It could come from septage, right?
Well, that's where most of it does come from, a lot of it.
And so the homeowner isn't going to have the resources to test. So at that point, it becomes the service provider's requirement, the permittee who's going to be doing the land application. It becomes their requirement to test. So it is being implemented. It might not be implemented at the speed that you're looking for, but the solid waste rules already require land application to be tested. It's got to be tested for arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, lead, mercury, molybdenum, whatever that is, nickel, selenium, and zinc. And then it has to be also tested for PCBs, nitrates, and PFAS. So there's already requirements for all of those things. And there's going to be a requirement for the wastewater treatment facility to manage the PFAS to a certain level, hopefully beginning in 2024.
Yeah, but Michael, I know we've got this requirement coming on the permit to obtain the permit. But I would think that the only people that could afford and would have to tend to this is the sewer treatment facility. And if we've got a hodgepodge of people that can register, then we must have a hodgepodge of places where this stuff is going, and it'll end up slipping through the cracks. And whereas if the burden was on the municipality before the product left the facility, it had to be tested. I should think that would put the burden on the municipality to have this stuff tested. And if it's clean, then who cares where they go with it? If it's dirty, then it's got to go to the landfill or some other place for further treatment. I don't know.
I honestly, I think your concerns are being met. So the sludge that's generated from a municipal facility can go to one of three places, right? It can go to a landfill. It can go for land application. Well, let me step back. The septage or sludge. So septage can go to a wastewater treatment facility. Septage can go to a landfill. Septage can go to land application, and sludge can go to land application or a landfill, and potentially out of state for other treatment. So if it's going to a landfill, it's just going into the landfill. There's no testing, right?
Yeah.
If it's going for land application, there's already a requirement that it be tested prior to its land application. So
going where, Michael?
if it's going to be land applied, if it's going to be put on the ground, it's spread, there's already a requirement that it be tested.
And who does the testing though?
The person that gets the permit from A&R to do the land application, which may be the wastewater treatment facility, as Carrie noted, it may be the municipality, it may be an entity that is just the owner of the land, it may be the service provider that's the one that pumps the sludge and or septage. I think the way that the law is drafted, the material is going to be tested. It's just that it's the testing requirement isn't necessarily on the wastewater treatment / municipality.
I guess we'll leave it, but we'll have to have a visit with Chris sometime along to square that away.
This is going to be an ongoing issue as long as I honestly, as long as you don't have municipal sewer treatment for everybody in the state, because people are going to be generating septage, and even if you get wastewater treatment facilities that are managing their PFAS and other chemicals to a certain degree, you're still going to have septage. I don't know where you then send it. Do you have to send all septage through a municipal treatment plant? That might be difficult. Do you send it all to a landfill? That might be difficult too, because the leachate from landfills has PFAS in it too. So
the only answer I have to all that, Michael, is that the smart people, as I call them, figured all these systems out. And where the hell are the smart people when it all blows up and anteing up because they messed up on what to do with all this stuff? I just want to make sure that our land in Vermont, regardless of who owns it, is not contaminated with this trash. And it's like the line landfills seem to be the greatest thing since sliced bread for trash. And I'm not probably gonna live long enough to see those suckers blow up and break. And I'm wondering who's gonna clean that filthy mess up when that happens. But anyways, you know, it's not in our jurisdiction on who does what, but it is in our jurisdiction to make sure that our lands stay, you know, clean and healthy and are in a position to grow good food. So I guess we've milked that cow dry for right now. But I'll tell you, it's over there in Maine, it's not a very good situation. And Carrie and guys like you are kind of on the spot to make sure that that stuff doesn't happen here in Vermont and in our, you know, we are too. So if you run across something that you feel that we need changing in our laws, don't be shy about letting us know.
Senator, we are working on this. We are trying to get ahead of it. We have tested, looked at soil results for all of the farms that receive biosolids in the state. We have a way to monitor the Class A biosolids that aren't spread under a permit. Those are the biosolids that get further refined, heat treated and dried and then sold as a soil amendment. You'll notice that we didn't ask for any additional resources in S102, but as we build this program, I think we'll be looking for capacity to test for PFAS and PFOA in our lab, and you'll hear more about that next session.
Yeah. Well, Michael, if you need to go to Natural Resources, thanks a lot for being with us, and hopefully we can get people from the agency back in. Maybe, I don't know how much, I should have asked Kristen how much time she needed to come back in regards to our miscellaneous bill. But, oh, there you are. You're right there. Good. What do you think you need for time, Kristen?
I actually was going to ask you guys the same question. I'm confident that I can meet with our meat inspection team by either tomorrow or first thing Thursday morning. So by the end of this week, we could easily get back to you, I believe.
Soon, if you could do it for Friday morning, we're okay if that'll work for you, because we could get it out, then we could get it out Tuesday or even Friday later in the morning. Chris?
I was going to ask you, Mr. Chair, the timeline similarly, because I saw a note from the pro temp saying that we're really meant to close down this week. So
yeah,
is this the only bill we're voting out at this point?
I think it's the last one we have.
Yeah, and then we'll have to review the House's work on our stuff, but
that's it. Yeah, this is our the last bill. Yeah. So if you get to it sooner, things work out better for you, Kristen, just let Linda know and we'll get you in sooner, but we'll plan on at least Friday morning.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll meet with our crew, try and do that even tomorrow so that there's a buffer day if your schedule opens up for sooner.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
Carrie, I got just one more question. It doesn't pertain to committee work. But the committee might want to know about why we can't get marijuana tested at the lab in Randolph.
Right now, we are working on that. It's the same method we use to test hemp. And we could do the test with MOUs in place, but our general counsel at this point doesn't want the lab staff handling a controlled substance. We're taking possession of a known controlled substance in the lab, and he'd rather not at this point.
What the hell do we build the place for?
There's a lot of hemp testing, a lot of pesticide, feed, seed, and fertilizer, water.
Well, I think there's a little bit of question in marijuana use that's illegal, and I mean, it almost sounded to me like the state's supporting the use of marijuana and doesn't want tests for it.
So in this particular case, I did speak with the Essex sheriff, and
Essex County guys.
Essex County sheriff, yeah. More than willing to run those tests for him, but we hit some snags in the bureaucracy, Senator. We're not ready to test sample cannabis other than hemp in the lab, but we will be in the future. We are building that capacity. We're not ready to do fee for service, or we're not in a place where we would be comfortable putting our chemists on the witness stand either.
Chris?
A couple of questions along this line. You know, the reality is for the bulk of of course, our marketplace is about a year away. So a lot of room for the feds to change postures in that time. Assuming the feds get it together, and there is a lot of talk about it, are we going to be ready at our lab? In other words, is it just this legal, bureaucratic, cautious stance that's in the way, or are there other, are you then going to tell us about the other hurdles that we face?
No. So under the Farm Bill, if you read the 2018 Farm Bill, it speaks a lot about having DEA authorized labs handle cannabis. Our lab is currently not DEA authorized, but we're in process. As soon as we're a DEA authorized labs, our disposal protocol and everything will be cleared by the federal government, and our chemists will be authorized to handle controlled substances. But we're currently not a DEA authorized lab, and there is only one in the state.
Related question, there is considered in the outline that private labs will come on board, right? They get permitted for that. Does the state, and is our state lab folks, do they have a role to play to certify those, the private labs? In other words,
we do have a proposal in place. We do certify hemp labs, license and certify hemp labs, and it would be the same protocol and we will pitch that to the Cannabis Control Board once they have their first meeting, but the decision will ultimately be theirs if they want to use our services for that or build it themselves.
Thank you.
See, what the issue is, Chris and committee, is you're a sheriff or some type of a law enforcement person, and you ride by a property and you see a cannabis plant growing out there. And so there is, I don't believe, according to my guy in Essex County, there isn't a list of hemp growers that's online or that's public per se. So you're driving by or you get a complaint that somebody's growing marijuana. So you're law enforcement, so you go by the property and what the lawyers are saying is, how did you know if that was a hemp plant or a marijuana plant? Because they both look the same. So they're saying that the law enforcement people had no business going on the property to get a sample of the plant because they couldn't determine whether it was a legal plant or an illegal plant. And now, so they get the product, they send it, they haven't got any place to send it to get tested to speak of. And if they do, it's a very expensive test. Not that the tests cost that much, but the labs are all charging like heck for it because they know there's some money in the product to get out of the product to pay for the test. So, and then my guy, the sheriff, called me last night and said, what the heck's going on in Randolph? They can't test my product. And that Jiguer wants to do it, but he's been told not to do it. And yeah, it's I mean, what the heck are we here for if it isn't to serve the people? I mean, but anyways, you go tell Steve that he better get his head out of the sand and remember who the hell he's working for.
I believe you just did, Senator.
But anyways, are there any other issues that the committee? Thanks, Carrie, for being with us and the rest of the crew from the agency. Appreciate your time, and if any of you have questions, feel free to give us a call. Chris?
Well, did Senator Collmore, did you have a question? Okay.
No, I was saying goodbye to Carrie.
Just while we've got Carrie, we talked about the fees in S102, but are there other changes that we would anticipate or that you're watching or been engaged that?
They tightened up some of the definitions. It hasn't changed much.
Okay.
Senator.
Great, thank you.
Did they vote? Have they voted that out yet?
It left House Ag and went to Ways and Means. Ways and Means was, because of the fees, was okay.
So it's on its way then.
It's on its way. It's on its way.
That's great.
It might make a flyby at appropriations before it hits the floor, but it's on its way.
Yeah, good. Anything else, guys, that we want to ask? If not, thanks again, Carrie, and your counterparts at the agency for being with us. I think committee, we've got a meeting at 12:15, so we can adjourn and grab some lunch and be ready to go at 12:15. So thank you, guys.